Hello, beautiful creatures of the world, and welcome back to Coffee with Kerri-Lynn. It is a proper fall day in the far north of Maine, up along the Canadian border. We have the wood cook stove going, we have the windows open because somebody who was cooking breakfast this morning, not mentioning any names, overheated the house. And now we are living in 95 degrees inside, rainy and 60 outside. In the Corona, Maine. I hope everyone is having a beautiful fall day wherever you may be. I hope you're having a day filled with fabulosity and good coffee, because everybody deserves good cups of coffee to get through their day. Today we are talking about the Gypsy Rose Blanchard, also known as Mrs. Ryan Anderson phenomenon. Do 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 do. Phenomenon. Do 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 do. For those of you who are a certain age, and remember that catchy little tune, you are welcome. You will be singing that all day long. I've been singing it since last night when we were talking about the Gypsy Rose Blanchard phenomenon around our dinner table. It's amazing nowadays what can happen after you're released from prison for murder of your mother. Absolutely wild. Ladies and gentlemen, beautiful creatures of the world, if you do not know about Gypsy Rose Blanchard, probably been living under a rock. Go Google it up. She is infamous, and she was released from prison on parole in 2023, and she instantaneously got a TV show, Life After Lockup, which I've never watched. We don't have TV here on the homestead. We live off-grid. We haven't had TV for a very long time, and in some ways that is a blessing because it's just, TV can be numbing. It's bad enough we have these platforms where you can get caught up and go down rabbit holes in, but at least on the social media platforms, you can put that down and walk away, and it's not blasting in the background of your life. Anywho, Gypsy Rose Blanchard was the mastermind of the murder plot of her mother. You see, Dee Dee Blanchard, her mama, was a con artist and a grifter. Rod Blanchard was a deadbeat dad who didn't always send child support. So Dee Dee convinced a very little girl, Gypsy Rose, that Gypsy was very, very sick with cancers, many life-threatening illnesses. She convinced Gypsy Rose that Gypsy Rose couldn't walk and needed a wheelchair. Eventually, as the story would have it, the very, very short cliff notes, Gypsy would turn into an adult, and Dee Dee Blanchard knew that the gig was going to be up. And Dee Dee Blanchard was increasingly growing iller and iller in her own life. She had a bunch of medical problems. So as Gypsy became an adult, the schemes, the grifts, the cons started falling apart. The way that they earned their money started breaking down. Dee Dee got very sick, and in the last days of her life was basically confined to her bed. Now, Gypsy Rose wanted out. So she masterminded a plot to take her mother out so she could have her freedom, or so she claims. She claims to be a victim of Munchausen's by proxy. And that scheme was cooked up by her lawyers when she was arrested for the crime of murder and sentenced to jail. She befriended on the internet a young man named Nicholas Godejohn, and he really did take the brunt of the sentence. He will not be getting out of prison anytime soon. Nicholas Godejohn is a man who has autism. He was living with his parents, who was also an adult at the time. He was receiving SSDI. He had some mental problems, some illnesses, and he has a very low IQ. And Gypsy Rose Blanchard promised him things a life, a relationship, happiness. If only her mother wasn't in the way. And that's how that all went down. Gypsy Rose Blanchard ended up receiving a 10-year prison sentence, of which she served 85% of. She served 8 years. She was 23 years old when she was sentenced. And last year, she was able to get out of prison on parole. She stepped into the limelight, ladies and gentlemen, beautiful creatures of the world. She came out of prison and became an instant celebrity. She got her own TV show, Life After Lockup. She met Kim Kardashian. She has become an influencer, made many videos for her social media platform, her YouTube channel, her Instagram. She claims to have authored a book. She's an author now. We'll get to that, I promise you. She is, by all standards, a great American celebrity, whether we all like it or not. So how did this happen? How do you go from being a person sent to prison for plotting to murder your mother to instant celebrity when you come out? Well, for this, we have to go back many, many years. Ladies and gentlemen, beautiful creatures of the world, content creators, my young content creators out there who are really working on these stories of celebrity after a prison stint. I hear the content creators asking all the time, how did this possibly happen? Young people, you were probably way too young to remember the start of celebrity after jail time. I had children in high school. It was the early aughts, ladies and gentlemen, beautiful creatures of the world, and the likes of Paris Hilton, Nicole Richie, and Lindsey Lohan were running all over the place, creating mayhem and havoc. And Paris Hilton went to jail for a while, and Lindsey Lohan went to jail several times, and I had kids in high school. And the phrase became, so-and-so has been Lindsey Lohan, which means they committed a crime, and they were now going to jail for a little while. And it became a badge of honor. And if you were a young person at this time, you do not know how frightened your parents were. Because in our eyes, it was not a good thing. But the youth of the day were wearing this criminal effect as a badge of honor. And it has just strengthened and grown up until what we have today with the Gypsy Rose Blanchard Phenomenon. There have always been people on the outside that have tried to become a part of a murder world. There were the groupies for Charlie Manson, the women and the men that wrote to Charles Manson that wanted to be in his aura, I should say. They wanted him to write back. They wanted a person of importance in their life, because mostly the people that do this have had severe traumas and abuses in their life, and they're trying to create relationships in such a safe space that the person that they are communicating with will never be able to get to them physically. It is a very sad thing that does happen to people who have suffered severe emotional abuses, emotional traumas, other abuses, physical abuses. And they want to shut the world out, but they still long to have a relationship. And you will find that many of these very traumatized people do go and try to become friendly with people who are never going to get out of prison. They will write to them. They will hope for a response back. They will put money on their commissary chit. They will bend over backwards, have telephone calls with these people. But in their mind, it is safe because they will never have physical contact with these people in prison. Now, Ryan Anderson, he's a different story. He became friends with Gypsy Rose Blanchard through being her pen pal. Then he wanted to meet her. I am sure at some point in Ryan Anderson's life, he suffered some type of emotional trauma, probably due to a ex-girlfriend or something, and it was safe. It was a safe relationship to have when Gypsy Rose was in prison. Ryan, I legitimately think, fell in love with Gypsy. I legitimately do believe that Ryan absolutely wanted to marry her. She healed something inside of him, only to destroy it again, but that's what happens when you get involved with somebody who wants to take the life of somebody else. They are going to suck the soul right out of you, and they're going to figure out a way to hurt you because she's a narcissist and she is a master manipulator. Now, ladies and gentlemen, beautiful creatures of the world, Gypsy Rose steps out of prison, a married woman going to live a fairy tale, gets herself a TV show, because everybody wants to have hope for everybody else, leaves her husband, goes back to her ex-boyfriend. Now she's having a baby, or isn't she having a baby? It's a big controversy. Nobody knows. Is she using fakeababy.com? Who knows? It's yet to be revealed. But the phenomenon actually started with Paris Hilton, with Lindsey Lohan, where it became a source of pride to get into trouble with the law and do a little bit of jail time and come out and live a life. And that was all well and good for people who have that kind of celebrity status and that kind of cash. They're from very wealthy families. And if you are a regular person who does not have a very wealthy family and you get arrested and you go to jail for a time and you come out of jail and you are still a very young person, now you've got all the obstacles of being a criminal, a reformed criminal, but a criminal nonetheless. And you will find that jobs are hard to find, housing is hard to find, people and their trust are hard to find when you have been convicted of serious crimes and then come out into the real world and try to live a normal crime-free life. And that's why a lot of people end up going right back to prison, because it's very, very hard to get forgiveness and acceptance out of society once you have been in the black pit of society, so to speak. It's not glamorous. And I said this years and years ago, it's not a glamorous thing. And children are going to grow up thinking it is. And one of these days, Facebook was brand new back then. Most of the social media didn't even exist. Facebook was a brand new thing. They had MySpace. We had ICQ. That was like instant text messaging. I mean, it was, when my kids were in high school, it was still emerging. All of the tech was still emerging. And I said, if this tech thing takes off the way that the youth of today are idolizing these celebrities who have been to jail, what's stopping a murderer from coming out of jail and becoming idolized? And it's happening. Now, My children that were in high school at the time, they're now 35 and 33 years old. So that was a long time ago. But I worried then, and I'm seeing what I predicted now. And the more fame we give to criminals, the more the younger generation is going to say, hey, look what you can get if you do X, Y, and Z. There's no real consequences. You can come out of prison and you can become very wealthy. Now, as far as Gypsy Rose Blanchard's wealth, also known as Mrs. Ryan Anderson, not for long. They're getting divorced. However, she's not giving back to society. She has all her money in trusts that are in other people in her family's names. And she claims to be an influencer. She is influencing the youth. She's influencing your children. And you should, as a parent, feel very upset about that. You do not want your children looking up to her. She is not a success story. She was put in prison for the offing of her mother. She came out of prison, a married woman, was not out of prison very long, did a little TV show with him. Her old flame came back, decided she wanted a divorce, went to live with her father and her stepmother, and now she's still married and knocked up with her ex-boyfriend, her current boyfriend, his baby, allegedly, supposedly, nobody really knows. The baby bump is all different sizes every time she's filmed. She claims to be an author. Jip, babe. You are a narrator. You are not an author of your life. You are a narrator. The book that was written was ghost written for you. You told someone your perception of your life. And they wrote the book. They were hired to write the book because y'all don't know how to write books. So if you had written the book, then you are an author. When you tell someone your life story, you are a narrator. And yes, you are going into the recording studio in a few short weeks to, once again, narrate your story. You're going to be reading your book and putting it on audio tape. Again, does not make you an author. It makes you the narrator to your perception of your life. And moms and dads, children are impressionable. I wouldn't allow my children to be impressed by a woman who has offed her mom and hit superstardom. Children need local heroes. Mom needs to be the hero. Dad needs to be the hero. Grandma, grandpa, the fireman, the policeman. Aunts, uncles. Point your children into real life influencers, people that actually have a part in their lives. And you can end this phenomenon of celebrity misbehavior, jail time, and this badge of honor that it seems like all the youth want to wear. Ladies and gentlemen, beautiful creatures of the world, be the kindness that you want to see in the world. And as always, don't be Gypsy Rose Blanchard, also known as Mrs. Ryan Anderson, soon to probably be known as Mrs. Ken Urker. Carpe Diem, because no one promised you a tomorrow.